Welcome back, folks, to another episode of Business from the Bass Boat Podcast on the Serious Angler Network. And guys, today we've got a great show lined up. We have been really busy. This is kind of into the fall season where, basically it's championship time for a lot of local trails, the Toyota Series Trails Championship, and then we've seen the Elite Series, the BPT, those kinds of schedules always seem to wrap up earlier in the year. The Opens is coming down to the wire. We've got Lake of the Ozarks this week, or when this goes out, Lake of the Ozarks will be wrapping up. But all of that's happening. It's an exciting time because, gosh, this is when fishing gets really good. It's hunting season for a lot of people. There's a lot going on. The fall is a great time. Today, woke up, actually, there was frost on the grass, and that is something I have been missing. But anyways, we've got a great show lined up. This is someone we had on a while back. It's Steven. Steven basically talked about electric jack plates with us and everything they've got going over at Powrtran and Impulse jack plates. They've got some really cool niche brands. We met, I think, at ICAST is what it was, but basically walked me through the jack plate. And I've just always been enamored with jack plates and how it's kind of a real niche industry, and to see something like that in the innovation I thought was interesting. So I just wanted to get him back on to talk about what they've seen, updates over the last year. And it was really new when we started talking about it, to see some of the testing and that kind of stuff. So without further ado, let's bring Steven in. What's going on, man?
Not much, man. How are you? It's great to be here.
Doing good. Ready for fall. I don't know about you. Has it been getting cold? You're up in Minnesota, right?
Yeah. It is. And it's funny, like we have that crazy swing where, you get up in the morning and it's chilly, like, and take the kids to the bus stop and you gotta put a sweatshirt on and then, get to work, by the time you get home, like you gotta take the sweatshirt off. Like,
right.
Going on in the truck in the morning, and then you gotta turn the AC on when you get back. We're in that kind of that strange period. But that tells you, when you, like you said, you got frost on the grass. Like we haven't had that quite yet, but we've had those that chill in the morning that you just know that summer's not too long here, and we'll be gearing up for fall. So
right. Yeah, I was like, I woke up this morning, I haven't turned the heat on in the house or anything yet. And I woke up and was like, gosh, it's cold. And I went outside and was like, oh, there's frost on the ground. Like, here we go. Like, it is a cold front. Like, this is starting to feel right.
Yep. I always say, like, that's about the time when that first cold front comes in. Like, that's about the time that my thought process starts to shift away from fishing, and I start thinking about sitting in a deer stand.
Yep.
So, I haven't done that yet. I think the bow opener was last weekend. I haven't gotten out yet, but it will be soon. Again, there's hopefully some more fishing yet to happen before that really, really dies off here yet.
Totally, man. With the transition, that's something I'm like, we're seeing about potentially picking up a tag here. But the moving from Colorado to Idaho, right? Like a non-resident, I'm still a non-resident in Idaho. And so didn't get in the draw or anything at the beginning of the year. I've looked at picking up a leftover tag, but non-resident fee, all said and done, it's going to be $800, going from a $40 elk tag in Colorado. So it's kind of like, maybe not this year. I'm still working things out or thinking about it. I've got a buddy with a place in Wyoming. I might go elk hunt that for a cow tag or something. But it's, it's kind of like it's something you got to think about. These Western states, hunting tags are not cheap, man.
Yeah, it's pretty gnarly. That's why my father-in-law likes to go to Montana for elk hunting. He goes, and we've talked about maybe me going with him. And I told my wife, I was like, if I go, like I would go just to help him, like pack stuff out, do the spot stock, all that stuff, and maybe try to pull like a mule deer tag or something. Like I can't afford to pull an elk tag, get out of state. And then, with everything that comes with it, and get it back and butchering fees and everything, like it's too much.
Right.
So
totally, man. No, it's expensive, and we do it because we love it. But gosh, yeah, it's you got to pick and choose sometimes, and that's the other thing. I've got a fairly busy fall championship fishing schedule and that kind of stuff going on. And it's like, man, there's a lot of money in that. There's a lot of fun in that happening. So that's what we're kind of doing a little bit of this year.
Pretty much, yeah. None of it's cheap, but we do it because it's
what we love. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, I just got back. I was just pre-practicing. Got a place, just a local ABA trail. They've got 3 championships out west, and it was on a place that I am just like, wow, really cool fishery, beautiful country with the stuff I do with ranch real estate. Like I love big open country and stuff. And I was on the Columbia River, but more on the north end of the Columbia River in Washington. And man, like it was, pretty remote country, incredible walleye and bass fishing. And it'll take some good bags, I think, here coming up with the smallmouth particularly. But I couldn't believe the walleye fishing. Like I'm not a walleye fisherman, right? But
Yeah,
I played a bunch of those suckers because the limit on them on that place, I think they're trying to get them out of there. They're not. I don't think they're native.
sure.
They thrive, and I hope they continue to thrive because the limit is 15 a person.
Wow.
And I put 7 in the boat in the first 20 minutes, and they were all like, 16 to 22-inch, like good eater size, So that was just a blast. The forward-facing sonar has made it so much more fun for me to target species like that.
That's what I've noticed. Like with forward-facing sonar, we talked about this, a lot with walleye fishing. Is like it really changed how guys are approaching walleye fishing. I would say even more so, obviously, than bass guys, because walleye
Totally.
was a tactic where every tournament you went to was one on trolling, whether it was trolling
Right.
crickets, whether it was trolling, crawler harnesses or spinner rigs or something like that. Like that's how guys were winning these tournaments. And now when you watch it, they're casting to fish. Like they see them on forward facing, and they're pitching jigs and doing vertical jigging and that kind of stuff. That again, this is a big deal in the bass industry right now. But it absolutely changed what guys are doing in the walleye industry.
Right. Yeah. Dude, did you hear or have you seen the trolling motors on power poles? Have you
Yeah,
been seeing some of that? Dude,
yeah.
that's wild to me. Like
It
this stuff is getting, and it's always the crappie world, and then it works into the bass world. You know what I
Yep,
mean? But the
yep,
crappie world is advanced. Like they take their electronic stuff, and then we get it after it seems like in the bass world.
right. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I heard about that. I think it was either at the Classic or it was at ICAST, but one of the booths that was next was X Beyond 360. Like they had the guy that was there representing him or representing them. Like he's
Yeah.
big crappie fishing and stuff, and he was talking about that and showing me some. He's like, "Did you see this?" I just kind of blown away by it. It takes a second to think about like, okay, what does that really do? And then once you understand the reasoning behind it, it's like, well, that's brilliant. Spotting
Right.
stuff essentially to just avoid spooking them and sneak right up on them. It's crazy.
Right. Well, I mean, and I didn't think of the use case. Like my first thought was like, I don't want trolling motors banging around in 3-foot waves. You know what I mean? Hanging off of, power poles or whatever your shallow water anchor is.
Yeah.
But it was interesting to think about because it's like the use case on it. The reason that it brought my attention, okay, is like when it gets played in a tournament or talked about in a tournament, then I'm like, huh, okay, that's interesting to me. And I think it was on a Major League Fishing podcast with Jody White talking about whoever had won. I think it was a BFL super tournament on Pickwick, and he absolutely smoked him. Like he beat everyone by a ton, like 12 pounds or something, like a big blowout tournament win. And he had that on his boat, and he's calling them breaks. But same deal is because how many times if you're going, it makes you more efficient because I go really slow if I'm out there scoping and looking at them because I'm worried about running over top of one, right?
Yeah.
And then you go to spin your trolling motor around, and the next thing you know, you're blowing that fish out,
Yeah.
and you're feeling that. But if your brakes are on the back and you can stop on a
Mhm.
dime when that fish is there, I was like, holy cow, this is just, I don't know, something totally off topic, but it's just like that's something that was I had just listened to in the last couple of weeks here, and it got me really thinking about that.
Oh yeah.
It's crazy where the sport's going, man.
Absolutely, man. They'll never stop. Like there's always going to be the next, big invention, the next big thing, and it's really cool to see. Like obviously, guys are thinking outside the box now, putting trolling motors on their power poles. Like you never thought about
Right.
that, but I mean, what an idea.
Dude, yeah, yeah. Well, speaking of innovation and everything, uh, you know, everything that you guys do with your brands are around that thought process, right? And the last time we had you on, it was talking. I mean, you guys have been manufacturing jack plates for a long time with Powrtran, and
Yeah.
then the impulse was the whole new talk, right? It was an electric jack plate talking premium jack plate. It, has these sweet colors, the ones that we saw at ICAST anyway, with the black and at the Classic. I think you guys had them there too, but just super unique. Having that electric jack plate rather than the hydraulic in the space. And I just figured, let's get you back on. I know this was really new, just stuff was getting released then. Let's talk about it after a year of testing. I mean, you guys have been testing it obviously on your own and with certain guys, but now it's on the market. You're seeing, guys, I think Logan Parks in the Opens is running it, right? You've got different guys at the high level running it.
Yeah. It's been unbelievable, to be honest. Like when we first talked, it was shortly after ICAST, and we thought at that time that, hey, we're really close to putting this thing in the market, and we ran through a few more things. It just wasn't quite right, and then we trying to get material and componentry and all of that stuff that sort of delayed us a little bit. But now we've been shipping units since the first part of this year. We've had guys that have been, running them for a while. Oliver Nye with Big Bass Dreams, like he actually got a prototype here. So he's been running it on his Vexus, and then he just put a couple more. He keeps building, getting more boats. He's in an offshore boat and a smaller boat now, and he's got them all rigged up with jack plates, and so that was a lot of positive feedback from him that helped with that. And Logan's phenomenal. He's a great fisherman. He's right up there, like fingers crossed, and you can finish this thing out and qualify for the elites next year. Like, I mean, you couldn't ask for it to happen to a nicer, more humble kid. So super stoked for him, and he's just a great guy to have on the team. Provide a ton of feedback for us, and just loves the jack plate. And which is a big deal for us. Again, we talked about it. Like jack plates for the longest time, there just was no innovation. There was nothing new. I mean, it was a completely utility thing that people put on the back of their boat because they thought they needed it. It was just kind of time to bring something a little bit different to the market. And with that electromechanical jack plate over hydraulic, like there's just so many features that come with that the average, person is going to, use and enjoy. We talked about it before, like probably the biggest thing I think that exists in that jack plate that nobody else can do is that our manual override built into it. Like it's literally, if you lose power, something happens. Like, I mean, tournament fishing, especially, like it's rough on equipment. Things happen. Like, everybody's been through that with, stuff even way bigger than, we've had motor problems. Like stuff is going to happen. So if something ever does happen, you lose power, battery goes dead that you have it hooked up to, whatever, like a 6mm Allen wrench can still move that plate up and down. You'll always set it at a spot that, is comfortable to get you through the rest of the day, get you back to weigh in. We never want to be the reason why somebody, either can't make it back or can't make it back to weigh in, or, is having those things. Like we'll build whatever we can in to make sure it doesn't happen. So, totally. It's been, the response so far has been phenomenal. Like I said, we mentioned a few guys. We're in conversations right now with a lot more big names, people that have reached out to us about running the plate next year. So hopefully we'll have a pretty good team running this thing next year in 24, I think.
No doubt. Heck yeah, man. Well, no, exactly. And I don't know if we talked about this on the last one, but I had a buddy that we laughed so hard with each other about, mishaps on the water or doing bad in the tournament or whatever. We just have fun making fun of anglers as ourselves in general. Yeah. But one that just has me absolutely cracking up was on his hydraulic jack plate, something malfunctioned, and it was just locked out to where he could barely get it on pad, but he wasn't down. He had the jack plate up, and it was rocking on Sam Rayburn, and he had to get back. And he said he was just his trim. Also, something was wrong with his trim to where it wasn't reacting properly, but his jack plate was also all the way up, and he was just eating waves. Like he was just staying super high, prop coming way out of the water, and just his whole run back was brutal. And he's like, dude, I looked at my coach, I'm so sorry, man. I have nothing I can do. We're just have to go deal with what's working.
Yeah.
Oh, dude. Like, but in that kid's situation, he could have gone back there with a 6mm wrench, locked it down, and have been okay, at least to get back.
Exactly. Yep. It would have solved that problem pretty quick. Yeah. I mean, that's, like you said, that's the type of thing that happens. Like, it seems like tournament fishing, especially, Murphy's Law, if something can go wrong, it will. Like,
Right.
everybody's got a story of something like that happening. So, and you don't think about it with a jack plate. Like, the jack plates are something you rarely think about like that until you get in that situation. And it's like, yeah, you could have used it.
Totally, man. Yeah, no, it's just, and I know, the other cool premium features that I remember we talked about and saw were just like the preset, having that ability, like the big one. And I had never experienced it really until coming here, and I could definitely see it on walleye boats, but in Idaho too, like it's whatever. And this is an older house certainly, but like the garage doors are so low, but that idea of going back and just being able to drop your motor and just get things lower right away. Like I was like, that's genius, because one of these times I'm going to not remember and absolutely rip something off the back of my boat, whether it be power poles or the motor. But like,
Yep.
like that kind of stuff to me was something that I was just neat to have that button back there. And I know you were a premium, all that kind of stuff. And we kind of talked off air about some of the stuff that you're looking at bringing out. But I guess first, remind folks and folks who haven't listened, what are currently some of those premium features that you feel like set you apart?
Yeah. So, yeah, what we have there, there's a button on the frame of the jack plate, and we call it the trailer button. And its sole purpose is it's a programmable button on the outside of the plate that you can hit and put that jack plate at wherever, whatever height you set it at. So if you got a spot that you like to trailer, typically, we suggest always trailering with the jack plate all the way down. But if there's some reason that you can't do that, you got to be up a quarter inch or something, you can program that height in and then hit that button, and it's automatically going to go there. So a lot of times, you load the boat, you maybe have the motor all the way up, you get back to landing, like start strapping everything down, and all of a sudden you look at it like, oh, jack plate's not in the right spot. So rather than having to jump back in the boat and adjust it back down, you just hit that button right on the frame. It's we actually designed it to be reversible, so it can go on either side of that jack plate. So no matter which side your outboard trim button is on, you can match it up so you're not running back and forth from side to side. But that one, I always tell a story. Like, to me, that one is such a cool feature that came about, and it came about literally because we were testing the jack plate. So you're getting in and out of it. You're taking pictures. You're taking readings off of sensors and all that stuff. So going back and forth, and on this particular day, like, we were jumping in, jumping out, and then constantly having to adjust and jump back in. And it's like, our engineer was like, God, wouldn't it be nice if you just had a button that you could hit and it would just go? And we both kind of looked at each other like, why don't we?
It's just a button.
Let's do it. So, that's how that idea came about. And it's one of those simple things that, you put in. Again, people don't really think about it, but it's that kind of that little convenience that sets you apart. In addition to that one, there's on the remote that comes with the system, there's 3 more programmable buttons. So you can set 3 favorite positions for your jack plate. If you got a spot that you find is like the premium on plane position, you can set that as a preset. So all you got to do is hit one button. And then, as you're throttling up, all you got to do is hit that one button, and your jack plate's automatically going to go to the spot it needs to go. You don't have to sit there and hold your hand on the, on the blinker switch or the, toggle or however you're controlling it. So just one of those features that again comes about, like, people, time is everything, in fishing for sure, especially tournament fishing, like, those few seconds and that you hit the button
and
before you even put your life jacket.
Right. Like, not to not like, I mean, to me, it's something where I'm someone who likes to, like, if you prepare on the front end, when you get your new boat for that year or whenever your boat, and you dial it in to where you're like, hey, okay, if I'm running full out and it's slick, this is what I want things to be like. If I'm going to be in the backwaters, but I want just my jack plate all the way up or as high as I can, but still get on pad and pop up on pad quick, but feel safe without ripping off my lower unit. Whatever those settings are, if you have those preset, to me, it's like, instead of holding, like you're saying, your finger on a trim switch, and some people will be like, well, that's easy, it's not a big deal. It's like, and I get that, but think about this. It's the same concept of getting in your car and hitting the window button and it automatically rolls up, versus sitting there holding it to then get it to the exact spot and paying attention about what the window's going to do. It's like, in this case, Oh, did I lose you, Steve? Now you're back.
For a second.
Okay. In this case, like it's just immediately, it already does it without you even thinking about it. You hit the button, boom, you're good to go. And then if you need to make adjustments, great. But like you have your presets. Those things to me, I've always thought were innovative because you don't see that.
Yeah, to my knowledge, there's really nothing, nothing that exists in the plate itself. I know some manufacturers look and stuff with like their MFDs and controls and stuff, but to have a self-contained jack plate that does all that stuff was really the goal when we started, looking at bringing an electromechanical jack plate to a greater market, especially the bass market. Was these features that anglers are going to find useful and put those in, and then like you mentioned a little bit ago, like one of the big things that we're looking at right now, as we've gotten this feedback from a lot of people, is to make this jack plate even more accessible to everybody out there. We're looking at options for how to offer it on a little bit more of a like an a la carte style. So we'll have a stripped down version where just a basic up down switch and control to bring it in at a lower price point for people that are interested in moving into an electromechanical jack plate,
Sure.
but aren't quite willing or don't know if they quite need those features, that go into the gauge and the control and all that stuff. And then we would have an upgrade kit, which the way we've designed it, I mean, the upgrade would take 15 minutes to swap out, and now you have all those features again. Yep.
So do you have at this point, do you have a price point on the, I guess, stripped down version and then what the premium one is at this point?
We don't yet. That's one of the things we're working on. Again, this is a brand new thing that we just started, really exploring in the past few weeks here. So it'll come soon. As people are kind of getting ready. We got a big trade show coming up in a couple weeks, the IBEX Expo, the Boat Builders Exhibition down in Tampa.
Oh, cool.
So want to try to have it nailed down by the time we get down there. There's a lot of builders that that we've talked to that I think would be pretty excited about that option to bring a jack plate in at a lower price point, but then sell the upgraded features to the customers that need them.
Sure. No, that makes a lot of sense. And just like you're saying, the nice part with it being that it's a 15-minute edition, you can try that first version and say, hey, do I see the value in this? And if you ever wanted to, it's, probably a fairly easy self-install, right? As far as that goes.
Yeah, it's super simple. That's the best part. And that's part of the reason why we were able to move into that model is once we realized that we essentially had it designed where everything was built in the way that we needed to. So to upgrade, I mean, you don't even have to take the jack plate off the boat. You don't have to take the outboard motor off. Like the upgrade is all external. It's basically swapping out a cable and a control box, and you're good to go. So, like I said, it should allow people or encourage people to get their hands on electromechanical jack plate if they're not, they're not really ready to spend the extra money on those features at that time. Like they can still get in and make that decision later on, which I think is pretty helpful. And I think that a lot of boat manufacturers are going to like that too. So, kind of a cool, again, we're always thinking, like we're always trying to, listen to our customers, listen to our pros, listen to, everybody out there and put the best product that we can forward. And when you can do something like a simple change like that can make it a little bit more accessible, I mean, it's easy and we're certainly going to do it.
Yeah. Now, over the last year of testing, pros running things, all of that, like, has there been anything in your mind, and obviously go as far into this as you want, but I think it's important too sometimes to be like, hey, this is something that we saw an opportunity to make better. Is there anything you can think of or point to this last year where you were like, this is something that we were kind of like, hey, we could make this better in this instance?
There's one, and I won't get too far into it, but we're looking at options to sort of improve on the design of the frame of the jack plate itself.
Okay.
There's really a lot that can be done, with that to, improve hole shot, right? And, get a better top end speed, take advantage of, all of the mechanics that are working in your favor. So there's some things that we're looking at, with that frame design, that may come about at some point. But that's pretty much it. The feedback on this thing has been incredibly positive.
Nice.
From the pros that have been running it to customers that have bought them and have been running them to what we've done ourselves and getting them on boats, just multiple different, like I've got a 17-foot aluminum, Tracker Deep V boat that's got a jack plate on it now. So I'm able to provide a little bit of, feedback from that side. We've got, there's a 17-foot Ranger bass boat that one of the guys here has. We put a jack plate on that. We got 19-foot Nitro Z19 that our engineer has. So we've been able to do a lot of it in person here. In fact, the owner of the company has a 27-foot Premier pontoon with a 400 racing motor on it.
Okay.
He's got a jack plate. So
that's cool.
we're able to really kind of play with different hull designs and kind of see what it is. And again, everything's just that design is phenomenal. The electromechanical, I mean, those things are just bulletproof. The controls have been great. So super positive, super pumped.
That's awesome, man. Well, and that's what I was going to ask next is there a max horsepower on the jack plate itself?
There is, and I guess that is another thing that we are considering. So the horsepower rating on that jack plate is 450. So it will raise a jack plate at up to 450 horsepower. But we've noticed that those heavier horsepower motors, like there's a lot of weight there and a lot of torque, so it ends up making the jack plate move just a little bit slower than
you're pushing. How much is a 450 weigh? Like 1,000 something pounds,
yeah,
right?
Pretty close. And so that's a lot of load to put on there. So there's other actuator options, like stronger actuators that we can put in. So we're kind of playing with that to see if we might end up branching this thing into two models that will have one for high horsepower motors and one for everything up to like 250, and kind of set it apart that way.
Right. Which is like, I mean, at least the bass market is in that 250 range. But the walleye guys, like there's a lot of walleye guys that have a 300, 350. I see that all the time with those big walleye boats.
Oh yeah. The Nitro just released their new model ZB21, and we've had these jack plates on, I think, like the first 3 hulls that they put out that we're testing, and on that boat they've got the new 400 V10 from Mercury. So it's just an absolute hoss of a motor on the back of there, and like I said, I think there was 3 or 4 right at the beginning that they had pros that were running them. Chase and Gary Parsons for sure, that big walleye guys, and they had those, and they've been working with us for a number of years. So we hooked them up with jack plates to put on those boats, and yeah, that's what they do. They do big horsepower stuff, big motors, and they beat them hard. But the bass boats, yeah, like you said, typically stay in under that 250 mark or 250 and below. And so our standard model is absolutely more than enough on a boat like that.
Right. As far as lifting that motor up and down.
Yep.
Sure. Well, that's awesome, man. It's great to hear. It's great to hear and cool to kind of see. Something that I love about this podcast on the business side and some of these brands is hearing like the development and then seeing it come to fruition and then like checking in, right? Like, and being like, hey, so what worked, what didn't, how are things going? Like, and it's, working with pros and working with manufacturers, like all that stuff to me is just cool to kind of watch the journey of some of this stuff, because it's still really new, but it was pretty new to the scene as far as electric stuff goes, because it's like, this is the way it was for however long it was before that, for a premium jack plate. And this is kind of forward thinking.
Yeah. I think we talked about it the last time I was on, where, even literature that's out there, like anytime people talk about jack plates, they literally call them hydraulic jack plates or hydraulic plates. Like,
oh yeah, totally
part of the naming convention of jack plates. So it's like, part of our mandate here is to try to update and refresh that to it's a jack plate, right? Like there's hydraulic plates and there's electric plates, and and here's why you want an electric.
Sure.
I mean, you see it all the time, like at trade shows where people come through. Like I remember the Classic, I can't tell you how many times like people, oh, is that a new hydraulic plate? Like, you're half right, it's a new jack plate.
You need a sign that says not hydraulic.
Yeah.
That's awesome. But dude, what else? I know with Powrtran, there's a couple of brands around it there. And I think we just barely kind of broke into some of the forward facing sonar stuff you guys were working on the last one. But what is going on you're seeing it more and more. You're seeing, oh my gosh, the amount of talk right now in forward facing sonar. And if you haven't heard at this point on the Serious Angler show, go back and listen. We've got a huge panel. We've been working hard on getting pros together to talk forward facing, because it's like, gosh, I know no one wants to keep hearing about it, but it's like, we're a podcast company. We got to talk about these things, but we don't want to talk about it without having like some serious opinions. So anyways, listen to that. Just got to plug that for Serious Angler. But you guys have something in this realm, or you have a dog in this fight, if you will, because you've got stuff that's connecting to the front of a trolling motor and is able to kind of do some of these things that we're seeing. But talk a little bit about, I think it's the Foresight. Is that right?
Foresight. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Foresight mount. So, you've seen there's other companies that do them. It's basically a mount for your forward facing sonar transducer. It allows you to mount to the trolling motor still, so you can, stow and deploy the transducer with the trolling motor, but you can control it independently of the trolling motor. So you focus where you want that transducer to point, with a motorized pole, controlled with a foot pedal. So, if your trolling motor spot locked, or if you just want to look away from where the trolling motor's pointed, you can do that. And you're
Windy days,
100.
man.
What's
That's
that?
the windy days. I see that
Yeah,
being most effective, like you're saying,
for
spot lock.
sure, for sure. And you're 100% right. Like the crazy amount of conversation about forward facing sonar in the industry right now, it's like it's a lot to try to keep up of, or keep on top of, with anglers and their viewpoints and all of this stuff. And it really, it seems like the tour, the two main tours, or two big tours, are sort of gearing up to make a decision on that, whether it's going to be, banned or restricted for next year. And so everybody's got a little bit of an opinion on it. But certainly, us from a professional standpoint, we don't want to see it banned or even restricted. Like, we make a product that piggybacks off of it and helps, improve it. So we got our fingers crossed as we watch this stuff that, that it'll come through that way.
Yeah. It's really interesting times, because I see both sides. I don't see the side, I guess, of my opinion of it. As I just said, we weren't going to go into opinions of it, but I don't see the side of banning it completely. I've never thought that was the right approach. Now, seeing guys that are running 5 transducers on their boat, or 4 like some of that to me is like, maybe we're pushing it a little far on things when you've got stuff going off your jack plate and on the front and in your trolling motor and in this and in that. It's like, okay, there's a lot going on here. And there's not maybe a level field because of that in tournaments. But I was having a conversation with a buddy about this the other day. It's like, after utilizing it, I would be frustrated going fishing without it now, especially offshore fishing. And don't get me wrong, I love going up and throwing a frog and fishing shallow. I'm always going to love that. And I'm always going to do it. My favorite thing is sight fishing. If I can sight fish with my eyes, I'd rather be doing that than anything else. But I have a heck of a lot of fun looking at them and throwing at them now too. And I think if that was then taken away to where I couldn't utilize it, sure, I'd still love fishing, but I would be annoyed, like pulling up on a point and being like, I don't know if they're here or not. I'm going to have to, it's just not as efficient, right? It might take you 20 minutes to fish that point and be like, if I had forward facing sonar, I could have gone up and down it and had no follows and saw nothing. And it's like, okay, let's move on in 5 minutes, not 20 minutes. So I don't know. It's an interesting debate, and we'll just see where the kind of the everything lands. I can't imagine that these tournament organizations are gonna turn stuff away, just because there's a lot of money with these brands backing them. You know what I mean? Like there's partnership deals, and it runs the industry in a lot of ways. And I guess it's just an interesting time, man.
It is, and that's all you can do, is just kind of sit back and watch it, and keep that curious eye on it. Like I think, like I've said before, what I hope happens in these tours is that they listen mostly to the anglers. It's their tour, it's their livelihood, it's everything. if they decide they want to use it, then I hope they do. If the anglers come together and they're like, no, we want to go back to the old school ways, like let's get rid of it, or let's heavily restrict it, like whatever it is the anglers want, like I hope that's what they do. That's all for. So, but until then, we're we're gonna keep talking to pro anglers and trying to get them hooked up with Foresight units, and we've got several of them that are running it. Matt Becker ran it this year, and he was phenomenal for us. Obviously had an awesome year. So that was really great. And one of the cool things about Matt is, once he got his Foresight, like he was he texted me and was like, hey, do you mind if I have my marine electronics dealer like contact you? I think they'd be all over this. I was like, yeah, absolutely. Send them away. And so that's how, we got hooked up with Steve from Bass Fishing Electronics. And just, again, another phenomenal guy, great industry resource. He's given us a lot of feedback, a lot of insight, great guy to deal with. And he's sold a lot of Foresight units for us. So, that was a great partnership that came, as a direct result of Matt running it.
Totally. No. Steve's an awesome guy. We've had him on a bunch and obviously have a relationship with him, with our brand. And he's the same kind of way, man. He's always tinkering on making something better, right, in the electronics world, and seeing how guys are running things and setting up things and doing, and I always talk to him about his personal boat, because I'm like, man, if you have access to all this stuff, what are you doing? Like, I'm curious about what you're testing on things. And so, but yeah, he's a big proponent of having that additional forward-facing sonar, or having your forward-facing sonar strictly on an additional deal there, just to have that separation on those windy days and that kind of thing.
Yep. Yeah. He is like, he knows more about, the other companies that make these types of mounts. Like he's sold all of them. I think it sounds like, his next boat next year is going to have the Foresight up in front of it. Like, he's really, really a proponent of that one, as opposed to, some of the competitors that are out there. And it also sounds like he might have electromechanical jack plate on the back of it. So
nice.
Yeah. Good situation there. He's a great guy and very knowledgeable. So it was great to have him. And like I said, Matt, just a great resource. And I was thinking, like, to me, like, this is one of the cool things about my job in the industry I get to be in, is like, when Matt was, fishing and had Angler of the Year on the line in that last tournament, like when he made the championship, I sent him a text. I was like, hey, congratulations, like, pull this thing home, and he responded. And I told my wife, I'm like, I don't think there's a lot of people that would understand how big of a deal that is to me, that, here's a guy fishing on the, biggest stage in fishing at the moment.
Right. In his life too.
Yeah.
His biggest moment.
And he's texting back and forth with me. Like, guys that I used to watch as a fan, I now have their numbers and they're texting me, like, you couldn't ask for anything better. Like, it's just a really cool experience, really, that I get to be in this position. So
totally, man. Yeah. You can't take it for granted. I mean, it's just like, that's what's cool about it, is you're getting to talk fishing and be around fishing and be around guys, like you're saying, that you followed forever, and you get to like literally work with them. Right. And so for you, that's just, that's all part of it. Everyone has to have a job. You might as well have a job that you really like doing.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't get starstruck too often, but when we're at ICAST or whatever, and some of these guys come through, it's like, I've been watching you for years. Like, I'm such a huge fan. Like, I could try to get you on the, on the team, or, try to talk to you about this stuff, but forget that. Like, can we just take a picture? Like, I'm just stoked that you want to come talk to me. Like,
right.
It's unreal. So it is truly a blessing to be able to do this and work in this industry and get to do this for a living. And like I say, just meet a lot of really cool people, and most everybody we've met has just been awesome. Like, and most pro fishermen are just so down to earth and so, welcoming and accommodating. Like, you just really can't say enough about it, how cool this is.
Yeah. Heck yeah, dude. No. Well, that's great to hear, and that's cool to see too, with Bass Fishing Electronics. They're ripping those units out because yeah, they're good guys, and obviously Matt Becker too. He's just in the interactions. I've only had a couple interactions with him. I think at at a trade show, but he was just awesome. Just super relaxed guy, super nice to talk to. And yeah, it's good. It's good. People like that in the industry are kind of what we need.
Absolutely. And it's a great ambassadors for the sport, and makes it super comfortable to go approach them about stuff like this. And yeah, it is. Yeah, and then Foresight, the biggest news there is we just released our bracket for the Power Pole Move trolling motor, which is
saw that.
It was kind of cool. Like, we talked to them at ICAST. Well, first we talked to them at the class, and we talked to them at ICAST. Like, hey, can we get the bolt hole pattern of what you guys are doing here? Like, we just need to know what the bottom of that thing looks like. And we were able to get that after a while, and then wanted to do a test fit, and our engineer Mike was like, you know what, I kind of want that trolling motor anyways. Like, everybody that's talked about it or looked at it said it's something. So we ended up ordering one.
There you go.
Put it on his boat, so we were able to make sure that the kit fit and works and is strong and solid. So that's out there. We should have a few more trolling motor brackets designed. We're working on one for the new Quest. We should have a bracket for that one because it's a little bit different than the Ultrex, and then working on one and see if we can fit on the Motor Guide Tour Pro as well. So those will probably be available here in next few months anyway.
Well, that's great to hear. We had the Minn Kota guys on talking about the Quest, and one thing that I am really looking forward to on these new trolling motors is a amped up, shock, spring, all that kind of stuff. Because man, when you start throwing this much weight on a trolling motor, we're talking forward facing sonar transducer, 360. A Foresight, when you start throwing all this stuff on there, like, man, first of all, that thing gets super heavy. And I think all your stuff has so much more wear and tear. And actually, this last weekend on the water, man, this is the first time I've certainly broken these before. And it's actually, I was having a conversation with Jake Boomer, a friend of the show, and with Alpha Angler. And it is actually kind of dangerous. So I snapped my trolling motor cable, right? And it was lifting the trolling motor up, and I almost fell. Like, somehow caught myself. Of course, the GoPro just stopped running. It would have been a great GoPro video because I almost went in the water. Like, I almost went in the water. But he was like, dude, that scares the crap out of me. Like, what do you mean? He's like, think about if the water temperature is like 45, 40 degrees. And you go to rip on that trolling motor, it snaps, and you fall in the water. I'm like, oh, that's a good point. That's a little nerve-wracking. I never thought of it like that. It's like, you could really hurt yourself.
Yeah.
Or hurt yourself landing in the boat, or hurt yourself not. But I feel like trolling motor manufacturers are seeing all the stuff we're doing to these trolling motors. And in that, for instance, on that Edge, they allow you to order it with the upgraded shock if you want it. If you're like, hey, I'm going to have a lot of weight here, it's not necessary if you're just keeping it how it was. But if you're adding all that extra weight, you kind of got to bolster everything up around it, because we're doing a lot, to all this stuff. Is where we like pushing equipment pretty hard as bass fishers. Whatever it is, we're like, oh, that a bass boat's not made to go in 4-footers. Well, we'll make it go in 4-footers. Like, it should be in a walleye boat. No, we're gonna do it in a bass boat.
Yeah. No, 100%. Like, the stuff we're putting on those trolling motors now, they're putting plenty of weight on there, and beefing up that shock will definitely help. I know last year when the elites were in La Crosse, because that was close to us, we reached out to a few guys, and we're like, hey, can we come out and show you some of this stuff? And so we actually brought our engineer's boat. He had the Ultrex on there. We had the Foresight with. We met up with Chris and Corey Johnston, Caleb Sumrall, and Matt Robertson was out there too, and Taku Ito, and we got him on the boat, and they're like, all right, Taku, lift this up, and he go to try to lift it, and he had to take two pulls at it because he was not expecting all that extra weight on the front of it. There's definitely something there. And that was actually really cool stories. Is if you remember the videos that came out from that event with Matt and Caleb wrestling on the dock.
Yeah.
We were there for that.
Okay. I was going to say,
if you watch those videos, you can see us in the background, like with our boat. We were there like to show them, and they came out and did this all. So I have like videos of that, that wrestling match on my phone from point of view, like just super wild.
That's awesome, dude. Heck yeah. That's fun stuff. And that's more of, like you're saying, to get to the industry. It's funny that you say that with Taku, because Taku's always talking about, he likes small fish because big fish are too powerful. Like he's not strong enough for the that's what he always says, like too big,
Yeah.
too big a fish. It's funny that he couldn't quite lift it up.
Yeah, he had to take 2 pulls at it. And then once he knew what it was, then he was able to hoist it up. But again, like, if you got to do that multiple times throughout the day, like that's that
Sometimes
necessity.
hundreds, or like what feels like it anyway. Like if you're
Yeah.
running and gunning 50 spots, 40 spots in a day, like that's a lot of time.
Yeah, exactly. And so for the trolling motor companies to see that and to invest in a heavier shock, like it just goes back to what we were talking about. Like, necessity is the mother of invention. You start seeing this stuff, and if you really look at it and start thinking about ways that you can make it, better for the angler or better for everybody, like to be able to put that stuff out there. I mean, that's the key. It's what we live by, and it's nice to see other companies doing it too.
Dude, so wait, one more time. Necessity is the what's the saying you just said?
Necessity is the mother of invention.
Necessity is the mother of invention. I like that.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense, right? Like if it's something that's being used over and over, it's a necessary thing. There's the mother of invention. I like that mindset. It's exactly what you guys do, trying to optimize stuff that's already there, make it
Absolutely.
better.
That's the key to it. Once you see something that that you could use, and you start putting your brain to it. All right, how do we do this?
Right, right. And how do we do it better? And that's
Yeah.
what's cool too. I think right now we're seeing so much advancement so fast in fishing technology, how things are done, all of that. And in your brand's position, you get to look at this stuff and say, okay, how can we tweak it, make it better, make something to enhance that product or that kind of a thing. And so, man, it's like you got to be probably paying attention a lot to when stuff gets released about what changes or what little tweaks you can make to things. Oh, I might have lost Steven. He's probably on a phone call, probably too busy.
No, are we back?
You're back.
All right. I don't know what's. I just lost service. I don't know if I get the best service in this building, but
You're good, man. You're good. I
yeah.
thought you might have got a phone call or something.
No.
Someone came to yell at you. No,
No.
but I don't know if you heard any of that, but I was just saying you guys get to be on the forefront of, like, you need to really probably be paying attention to these new product releases and stuff.
You do. And that's actually it's kind of funny. Like that's how the Foresight came to be. It was never designed, or it was never thought up originally to be what it was. It was actually the conversation got started by a marine dealer that we work with in Forest Lake that just basically wanted a wedge to level out his manual transducer controller. And I was like,
Okay.
it's something simple. Like I'll have the engineers, draw it up, whatever, and get back. And we started like, well, this is what they want. Oh, because this is what they're using. And then we went and found the manual pole that they were using and looking at it. And within about 45 minutes of just ideas going back and forth, we had this concept for, a mount that you could put on the trolling motor and control with your foot that would move the transducer.
Right.
And I thought, wow, it's a pretty good idea. And then you start doing research and find out that there's several companies out there that already do it.
Right.
And that put a stop sign up for maybe about a day, where we said like, all right, we're not
Okay.
going to do this. Like everybody else is doing it fine. And then you start really researching, like, listening on the forums and everything of what people are saying about those products that exist. And it's like, there's some opportunity there. They're having issues. They're maybe not the most durable, or the electronics are failing, and all these things. Like, so we had an opportunity to look at what everybody else was doing, and try to make the best version of it. We weren't the first, but we could be the best, and that's what we did.
Dude, yeah. Well, that's huge. And I think I've always wondered kind of with that stuff, right? Like, I don't know. I used to spend a lot of time on some of these forums, right? What's the main one? Bass Boat
Yeah,
Central,
Bass Pro
right?
Central. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I still jump on every once in a while, but like, it's just not how I get a lot of my media or interaction. I feel like more of that now is, for me, is like Instagram, Facebook, right? Like, and that kind of stuff. But there is still a ton of people with eyeballs and opinions and stuff that throws up, they throw stuff up on there. So I'm sure like you're saying, a lot of brands pay attention to that stuff and try and tweak things, and also see what people are saying about your product, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure that comes out, whether it be positive or negative, and then you can try and address it, or figure out, this is a good thing, and liking the feedback we're getting.
Yeah, 100%. Like the market will always tell you, where your products are weak, or what your opportunities are to improve them. No matter what we do internally here, like we cannot replicate every single situation that somebody's going to put out there. A jack plate, right? Like we can't replicate every single boat hull. We can't replicate every single outboard, every single prop, all of these things that once you put it out in the market, you have to listen and keep that open, and understanding that not everybody that does that, like that gets your product, is going to call you up and tell you what they heard or what they experienced. Like
Totally.
sometimes they're just going to bash you on social media or on a forum or throw it out there. And so we've been very fortunate that we really haven't encountered much of that, from a negativity standpoint. I think most of our feedback that's out there has been pretty positive, but you have to be constantly listening for it, to see, again, not just what your customers are saying, but what people who might be your customers are going to say, and always looking for what that next thing is, that next feature, that next product, that next technology. You have to, and so that's one area I think we do pretty well.
Heck yeah, dude. Heck yeah. No, makes a lot of sense, and it's glad to hear that you guys are staying on the forefront of everything. And man, I'm excited to see all kind of the new stuff you guys roll out, especially just around that stripped down model on the jack plate, and seeing, what folks are interested in from that perspective, and which pros are going to be running it in 2024, which manufacturers, that kind of a thing. All that stuff is interesting to me, and I like watching it unfold. So a lot of exciting things going into to 2024. Anything else you want to touch on going into 2024 as far as production stuff goes?
I don't think so. We're, like you said, we're pretty focused on, right now we're in those conversations, having those conversations with who's going to be running it for 24. And I'm pretty excited about the conversations we're having and the people that we got. And then, we're really going to try to, and now that the products are out there and we have, a lot of confidence in what we've put out there, now I think you're going to see a lot more content that we're going to be able to push through with the guys that we're working on. This year was, being this was the first year that we actually had products in the market, it was a lot of, like, even pro staff guys kind of told me, keep a little bit quiet while we, just kind of get the feedback and see, get a feeling for, how they're liking them and performing and stuff. And now that everything's been really positive, like, I'm really excited that I think we're going to cut loose on a lot of cool stuff next year, content wise, that we're going to put out on our social channels and all that stuff. And like I said, hopefully some of these manufacturers, I mean, there's 15 or so major manufacturers that are running samples right now. Early feedback is really, really positive. They like the electromechanical option. I don't think we'll be, the only jack plate that somebody's going to put on there. Like, our competitors have a pretty big foothold, but I think for being the only electromechanical one, I think that provides a unique selling proposition for these guys, to even bring to their customers. So I'm hoping that at least a few of them will convert on that. We've talking to retail outlets on, more on the Foresight side, and distributors and all that stuff. So it's a lot of stuff that's really in the works, but it's a lot more certainly than when you and I talked. Like, when you and I talked last, it was, a lot of this stuff was kind of on the horizon, and we hoped that we were going to have these conversations, or we hoped that we were going to be able to bring samples, and now we have, and so it's a lot more real, a lot more tangible. It just leads to a lot of excitement around here, going into 24.
Heck yeah. I love it, man. Well, I think that's a great way to kind of wrap things up. A lot of exciting things coming, and glad to see the progress on it all. And man, I always enjoy talking to you, Steven. It's been a blast, man. And I'm sure we'll catch you at the next show or somewhere along the way.
Absolutely, man. No, it's great. Great being on here. Love the show. Big fan of the Serious Angler, network. The podcast you guys put out. Like, I always listen to them on my way home from work, or if I'm cutting the grass, whatever I can. Like, I always love to listen to it. So it's great to be on here. Yeah, we'll certainly be seeing each other around. We're, like I said, Powrtran's kind of poised to make some waves in this industry coming up. So, we won't be strangers. We'll be seeing you around.
Heck yeah. Awesome. All right, man. Well, have a great rest of your time here. And as we get into fall, hopefully you get out and chase some deer around and chase some fall fish.
Sounds good, man. You too.
All right. We'll catch you later, man. Have a good one.
Thanks, Dan. You too.